I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and in part of the 2026 Spring Mini Skein mini-series, I dyed these sock blanks that had a resist through them, and then I kettle dyed them from in color black, and then in that resist area I painted on a rainbow. And I really wanted to see if I could do this technique but have more than one resist point throughout the blank, because and at the time I'm starting this intro, I am just steam setting the blanks, but they were so pretty that I wanted to do it again. So what are sock blanks anyway? Sock blanks are pre-knit pieces of fabric that are a dyer's tool, and we dye them to then unravel and use the yarn for something else. And since you have one end of the yarn at one side, one end at the other, you can use them to create gradients or other asymmetric colorways that then when you go to knit something, you don't have to attach multiple skeins of yarn or have more ends to weave in. The changes will happen automatically. Now, these particular blanks that I use a lot of the time, these are Wool to Die For's Platinum double-stranded blanks. They are 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. And they're double-stranded, which means that there's two 50-gram balls of yarn in here. So the knitting machine had two strands of yarn held together, so that way when we go and unravel it, you can see the two ends right there, we'll get two matched 50-gram balls of yarn. So it then doesn't matter if the transition between colors happens here or there, you're gonna get a matched pair of yarn. So if you like to make socks, then you can get identical socks, you can make something symmetrical, and it's really, really handy. Now, you can also get blanks that are made out of different yarns. You can get single-stranded blanks that will have one strand of yarn, so then you can get like an asymmetric shawl or what have you, but they're a really great tool, and it's really fun to explore different ways to dye them. Oh, and that really cool time lapse I showed you at the beginning of this video, I just washed and hung up that yarn to dry, and the spread of the neon colors over the black is gonna do something so cool when we go and unravel it. I am really, really excited to talk about that more in this video. My plan this time is that instead of just gathering this in the middle, I want to gather it at the two ends and apply two resists. So I'm gonna go, I think as close to the end as I reasonably can. Put on a zip tie, pull it tight, and do the same thing at this side. Now, what I'm really, really hoping is that we have enough looseness in here, and I'm gonna sort of fluff that up. We have enough looseness in here so that way we'll get good color absorption while still having enough looseness over here that we'll get color coverage over there as well. But you never really know how it'll happen, but we're going for it, and I'm doing it twice because I can always add more black dye at the hand painting stage of this. And I'm really just sort of letting the yarn like wrinkle the way it wants. I could do this in a more controlled accordion way, but in the other blanks, I really liked how there was a randomness to it. And sometimes that resist area like wasn't straight, it was straight and then sort of curved. I liked that element of surprise. Now, there are people that do tie-dye and they can get like amazing precision within like their yarn and their blanks, and that I just find incredible. But we now have our little puff pieces, which in theory should give us a stripe down either side of the blank with the middle more exposed. But before we apply the black dye, I do want to pre-soak these. I just have some plain tap water here. I want the black dye to be able to access the yarn easily, but I don't want it dry so that way the dyes get sucked into these resist areas. Now, this would be a side-by-side I could do at some point because I have a feeling I've enjoyed this blank so much that I may need to revisit this more in the future using other colors besides black and rainbows, or maybe do like a bright blue with a rainbow. There's a lot of things we can do, but it could be a cool experiment to pre-soak one and not pre-soak one and have two pots and sort of set that up. But This yarn is pretty darn absorbent. Like they're pretty well saturated already. I am gonna let it go ahead and soak, I think at least 15 minutes while we go prep our dyes. Our 6 bright colors are already ready to go. Now these are all Dharma acid dyes. We have fluorescent fuchsia, fluorescent safety orange, fluorescent lemon, radioactive, Caribbean blue, which is not fluorescent, and purple pop, which does have fluorescent pink in it, but it's the least fluorescent out of all the fluorescent combos. All of these are dyes that I mixed by starting with 1/2 gram of dye powder, and I dissolved it in hot water and brought the volume to be about 130 milliliters, which is about the volume of one of these jars. You can replicate these proportions yourself by bringing the volume up to 130 milliliters, but sometimes if you have a container that has some consistency to it, you can use that as a measuring vessel and that works well. But I made all of these yesterday, so they're all still very fresh stocks. And once we remove the resists, we can use these colors on our yarn. Our main color today is Dharma Acid Dyes True Black. I put on my deluxe rubber respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves to measure out 2 grams of the True Black acid dye and then dissolve that dye in some hot tap water, not worrying about the total volume I'm dissolving the dye in because we're going to use 100% of this dye on our blanks, which I say with an asterisk, we'll get to that later. But I'm going to add all of this dye to our dye bath anyway. True Black is my favorite black acid dye. And this is because it does not break. The only pigment in here is a black. There are no other pigments to help shift the tone, and therefore you can speckle with it and get just black speckles. No rogue red or yellow speckles that you might get from Jacquard's Jet Black or Dharma's Toner Black. As we come over to our dye bath, I want to acknowledge the little spill I had. This is why you wear PPE. I mean, the powder only went onto the counter. It didn't get flung onto my face or anything. It was a very minor mess. But, you know, I could have flipped the spoon with more force. And so you always want to protect your lungs and your eyes. And yeah, that's very important. All right, I'm going to bring over our 2 grams of dye and I'm adding it to 24 cups of water that is mostly still cold. Now I suppose we're closer to 25 cups of water and it'll be closer to 26 once I fill this again to rinse out the rest of the dye. But you know, it's approximate. Now I did turn heat on here, but actually I can rinse this out a little bit more here. The water is not yet hot and so therefore we're not going to melt anything with my plastic utensils. With 24 cups of water, let's add 6. 1, 2, 3, very carefully, 4, 5, 6 tablespoons of white vinegar. I am being careful because I don't want the dye to splash. I don't want it to splash and come up and cause any issues. So sometimes this is why I might add the acid before I add the dye. But anyway, I'm not gonna let this get too hot. We're mostly gonna heat it after I've added the yarn. But I have 4 minutes left on my 15-minute timer for the pre-soak. So I'll see you in, well now, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Okay, I have our 2 blanks. I squeezed out most of the water, as much of the water as I could. And as I'm gonna add them into the pot, I'm sort of gonna like try to help get that dye into that middle area by like really stirring and moving things around. You can tell things are not that warm yet because I can get my hands all up in there. Let me wash these off. And I'm gonna turn up the heat, poke that down so we get coverage. And I'm gonna set a timer for 30 minutes. Now, I'm expecting that in that time we might see a lot of the color absorb, but it's also possible that there will be some color left in the dye bath, and then I'll bring a yarn mop over to help soak up that leftover color. But so far with this project I've done in the last like 2-3 days, this amount of acid and this amount of time has worked well for me. So I will see you in 30 minutes. It has been 30 minutes and we are quite hot. Now I'm going to try to drain off a lot of liquid. Now the cool thing that it's too hot to show you now, but I'm seeing lots of good black, and I'm assuming that we have some good resist in here as well. But the other thing that we have is some reverse speckling, because the fact that the blanks are knit provides some resist as well. And so when we dye that, something cool will happen. We do still have dye in here. And, ooh, it's more than the last time we did the blanks. The last time we did the blanks, we ended up with something a lot more pastel. And the first time when we did the regular yarn, we had something darker. I think it has to do with the temperature of our water, but also the amount of available space. But anyway, I'm going to leave this. This is just a skein of Knit Pick Stroll, 75-25 superwash merino nylon. I'm going to leave it in here until we've absorbed that leftover color. We'll be adding some neons on top of it as well, and so that is just like a nice little bonus. But even though we're still hot, let's peek. We see our resist. That is good. I'm happy we got so much coverage on here. Okay, I will see you once this is cool. We are quite steamy and hot. It's only been about 20 minutes, but pretty much all of the color has absorbed. I am going to set this aside to cool a bit before we go and open up our blanks. Those are still cooling. They're about ready to open though. And so I'll see you in a little bit. But actually, in the meantime, I will be going ahead and reusing this as our steamer basket. Our yarn mop may be a little bit tangled. Clearly part of the zip tie broke. I'm going to have to wait and try to deal with whatever is going on here once everything has dried. It's a lot easier to untangle when dry. But I wanted to point this out, and if I don't mention it again, then that means that I quickly took care of it off camera. But what I want to do now is remove our resists. And the exciting thing is that you can see the white resist that we have from having this zip tie over the yarn. Now I could be wearing gloves right now, but I prefer to, when I can, to try to remove zip ties just with my hands, because that way I don't pinch the gloves in here. I am so excited that this seems to have worked as well as it did. Ah! You know, maybe I could have gone a little closer to the center, but the closer the zip ties are together, the harder it would be for the dye to get in here. Oh, I am so excited. Oh my goodness. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I mentioned some reverse speckling or some resist within the black areas. And it's potentially going to be hard to see because we have the white tablecloth, but if I take a section and sort of stretch it out, there are some little areas in here that are lighter. There you go, you can kind of see. See those little specks that are lighter than the rest of the yarn. And now when we go ahead and dye these white areas a brighter neon color, some of that dye will overlap with the black. And we might see some like dark green or blue or whatever from that combination of color. But with those like reverse speckle areas, that might have brighter color in it. And so this might be giving us the potential to do something really, really cool. Like, can you imagine having, just dyeing the blank black and then over dyeing sections in the neon colors? I mean, okay, but let's bring over those dyes. Okay, my plan is to do a bit of a repeating gradient. For example, I'm gonna start with pink here, go about halfway down, and do pink there. And then I'm gonna follow sort of this little rainbow up. And it's okay if it's not perfect. If some of the colors move around, you can see that I accidentally dumped some yellow in the wrong spots. That is fine. But the goal is to try to have the rainbow. Now the thing about doing this as not just one long rainbow gradient that I'm really excited about having the two rainbow sections, is that sometimes when you're making socks or something, you're not going to use all 50 grams. And so then if you're doing this, you might not get the entire rainbow in your project. And that is something that I always really overthink. And so doing it this way allows you to get a little bit more of that color. But now, I've just done one rainbow. What about this one? Well, this is going to be a slightly rotated rainbow. And this is definitely, color is bleeding on me. You can see we got some orange going in. Maybe I did not want orange there. Is what it is. The nice thing, it'll be there on both of them. But we're going to start this time with some orange. And the orange is going to be approximately, not perfect, but approximately where I have had the pinks. And we are going to continue in a very similar way with these colors. This is giving us something that is going to be a lot more like what I created. And it's a little bit shifted. It's not perfect because I want to make like this pink section up here a little bit bigger. I didn't leave myself as much space last time. But this is going to be a little bit more similar to the mini skein set that I created in the Spring Mini Skein mini series. Oops, and we had some purple drip out. You know what? It is what it is. Things happen as I bring over that pink. And I bring over the pink over here as well. And so we have this rainbow, and it does not match up. It intentionally does not perfectly match up, but it kind of matches. And so this is going to bring this radial gradient and make it a little bit more blended throughout the project, which I think is going to be really, really cool. Now, you might be wondering how I plan to heat set this, because I did not put any plastic wrap down before we started. And instead I'm going to put plastic wrap on top. What I have just realized, oh, I forgot I wanted to do something. Well, I can make this easy on myself. I forgot that I wanted to add a little bit of acid onto these resist spots, just because maybe they didn't have a lot of acid in here from before. And a lot of times these neon colors need a little bit more acid to strike. So this is just me taking some drops of straight white vinegar, adding it onto the yarn. And then I can plop this plastic wrap over. It could make more sense to put it underneath, but you know what? This works. The only bummer is that I have to do 2 sheets for this time. But then I can start rolling things up, making sure that plastic wrap is in there. And we're getting kind of a reverse jelly roll. Now you'll notice that we have some dye on the work surface. That is what our yarn mop is going to be for. But you can see like the pattern of the knit stitches in there, and I think that that is just so cool. Okay. And then we have this last bit wrapped in. A little bit of dye is on the outside. You can just grab this, wipe that up. I'm gonna pop this in a steamer basket. And I'm not going to bother setting the timer until we are ready to go. And I'm just going to take this mop and wipe up these colors that are on the counter, which is going to just give a little bit of some color randomly in here. And we can always add more color on it if we need to later on. But it's just a fun way to do things. And actually, I don't know what it is about this bottle that made the neck bigger, but it does not work as well. And so I think that that bottle is going to need to say goodbye because it is causing problems. But let's go ahead and do the exact same thing on our other blank. I wish that there was an alternative to plastic wrap that I could use to help keep the colors separate. Sometimes, if I don't mind, if there's blending between colors, you can kind of scrunch it up into a steamer basket in a way that allows the colors to stay separate. Or if eventually I do go ahead and get a steamer insert for my catering steam pan, then I can keep things more spread out and maybe would not need to use a steamer basket or plastic wrap to keep colors separate. But for now, there really isn't something better. I just try to avoid using it as much as possible. But sometimes it's unavoidable. And oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous. I am so happy with these colors. You may have noticed that our white stripe is interrupted in one segment of one of the stripes on the second blank. And you know what? This is a reason why it's great that it's a double-stranded sock blank, because that uninterrupted section is going to happen in the same spot on both of the skeins when we unravel the blank. It has been 30 minutes. Woohoo! And I'm now going to remove these blanks so that way they can cool off and I can unwrap them. And I'm going to add in our yarn mop that, you know what, no longer feels tangled. I think that there was just some spot of it stuck on some other spot. So that's good. That's really good. But I'm going to steam set this for 30 minutes and then I will take it out off camera. We'll wash this one off camera probably. But once our blanks have cooled, we can open them up and wash them. Let's wash our sock blanks. Okay, so this is what I'm really excited about. And I think, yeah, check it out. Those white areas in the reverse speckles, we've now got yellow reverse speckles in there. There is so much potential from this that, oh man, I am so excited. And also this just looks so cool. I had refrained from doing resist dyeing like this on sock blanks because I was like, oh, it's a vertical stripe, like maybe not that interesting, except for the fact, I don't want to start unraveling you yet, except for the fact that if you paint that vertical stripe different colors, then you're gonna get a mostly black yarn, but with a pops of color that change and evolve. And but the like reverse speckle, I mean, there's gonna be white reverse speckles in here too because I didn't paint the neons over the black everywhere. And the thing I don't know yet is how black things will read in the end, but I am so excited. And the proportion of those neon dyes, I mean, at least wet, just seems to be perfect. I was worried that the blue might be a little dark, and when it mixes with the pink, then it does get dark, but you still feel electric and neon and that pop of color. I've added some clear dish soap in, and sometimes with black, you see like a little bit of gray in the water, but that usually is only there for the very first rinse. Now, I like a lot of things about Wool to Die For's double-stranded platinum blanks, but they do unravel easier than, say, a Knit Picks blank. For some reason, those edges stay put a little bit better. So you may want to consider adding a safety line if you don't want it to start unraveling, which would be just taking like some thread and running it through all the stitches at the end. Or just be prepared that it could start to unravel itself. And this tends to be more of an issue if I'm dip dyeing the blank or something to make a gradient. But anyway, I cannot wait to lay these out so we can take a closer look. I mean, look at that beautiful green that we have in there. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Absolute perfection. Absolute perfection. Now, some of this looks like it's closer to the edge. Well, that one is fine. Than it actually is, just because of how things have curled. But oh my gosh, like I am unbelievably obsessed. Now, I love also that you can see, oh good, it shows up on camera. you can see that we don't have a solid black here, and it's like some areas got less pigment than others, depending on where that yarn was within the fold. And so had I tried to do a third resist in here as well, that wouldn't have worked so well, just because then we would have, if you have it like this, we would have had tons of areas in the folds, and it could still give a really fun result, but it wouldn't give as much of a solid as we have here. Now, I want to draw your attention to these halos that we have here. You can see, and you can see on this orange one as well, the spread of the neons onto the black. And if I open it up, we're gonna have, yep, some orange reverse speckles, some pink, some purple reverse speckles, where we're gonna see not just this sort of combined color, dark color here, but we're gonna see little spots of the intense color. And this, as an unintentional result, makes me think that a project I need to do is going to be very similar to this. We're going to start off the same way, dye our blanks, maybe even increase the acid a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead with neon colors and paint stripes or diagonals, do some kind of pattern on it with the neon colors. A lot of it is going to look kind of like this. It might be really hard to tell where I've added the color. And then we're going to unravel it, and it's going to be like unique and awesome, I think. There is a huge potential there. Oh, I also have to say, I love how sort of the offset colors worked. But the thing about this that's extra funny is that I did these as like mirror images of each other, which was not intentional. And I don't know, they look like neon, or they look like LED light strips on a wall. They look like they glow. I'm just obsessed. But I'm gonna go ahead and unravel a blank. We're gonna unravel this one because it started the process a little bit for us already. And I thought I'd show off just sort of the patterning. Okay, so as we go through one of the neon colors, you've got that pop of color here, and then here we have a little bit of that modeling, those reverse speckles, and that you could see them in white on the rest of the yarn. But around the neon, there's like a little bit of that halo. And if I unravel some of the pink, we can see that in here as well. There's our pop, but then the little bit of spread. So cool. I promise I did not forget. Oh, if you're a longtime ChemKnits viewer, you know what I'm gonna need to do before we go unravel, and we'll do it hopefully after I unravel as well. I need my black light. Okay, removed most of the light. Bam. Now it looks neon. Oh, that's so fun. Now, of course, we have some colors here that are not fluorescent. If I zoom in here, you'll really see the blue does not shift, but oh my gosh, you really see the spread of the other colors. Now, our purple, it does have some fluorescent pink in there, but it is not as bright as the pink that's next to it, and definitely not as bright as the yellow or green, which are the brightest. But something about that black backdrop really makes it look even more like lights and halo when I turn it on. Because like that spread from where I place the neon dye, it is so, so cool. And like, it just really makes it look like a light shining. All right, let's go unravel that blank. Slightly false alarm. Because we have our yarn mop, which from far away looks like it's mostly got orange, but we do have other pigments in there as well. It had a little bit of everything, but a lot of the black. But we do have some fluorescence in there, which is fun. The unraveled sock blank looks unbelievably awesome. Roller rink carpet vibes, right? Like something about not just the pops of neon color, but the reverse speckles and that modeling it gives to the black is just awesome. Now, I could pump up the volume of the black, especially because, as we noticed before, there was some resist in the middle, and so we could try, I guess, to get that overall darker, but we're pretty perfect. Now, if we compare one of these blanks that has the 2 resists to one of the blanks that I dyed with just the resist down the middle, one big difference is that, well, we have a gradient that is a little bit easier to see. The blank on top, this unraveled blank right here just had a single rainbow gradient. The other one I didn't unravel had a double. So that is one difference, but also there's a lot less color, it feels like. It feels like the blank that had the 2 resists has a lot more color in it and a lot more frequent color, which on one hand makes sense, but on the other hand, with the double resist, things felt a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower than with the single blank. And maybe I only used 1 zip tie on each side. Maybe I had used 2 when I did the other blank. That I don't remember, because I'm definitely seeing a bit of a width difference. No, both just had 1 zip tie, but I think the difference is that when we had the zip tie in the middle, because of the way the fabric was bunched up, it was harder for the dye to access around. And with, you know, the dye, like the edges exposed, the dye could get there easily, and that resulted in something that was a bit more narrow. Maybe. I don't know. Either way, the colorways are absolutely related and are gorgeous. Now, as I bring over my black light, I feel like I can't get the room quite dark enough to look at something this far away. I think we need to look at things on a much more narrow field of view with the light a little bit closer. Now, you can see it pop. Now, the purple over there is fluorescent. It's just not as fluorescent as the yellows, and so it doesn't pop quite as much. It must be really bright in here today, because we can still very much see it there, but yeah, I think we have a lot of light coming in, and I don't feel like I'm moving into a closet where I can block out all the ambient light. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really hope that you have enjoyed me doing this again in its own standalone video. And I'm wondering if I need to do this for more of some of the blanks that I dyed in SMSMS in the past, which I feel like there was a dry rub technique. I definitely did that. Actually, maybe I'd done that before and not after. There are definitely other things that I have done in both. Sometimes I might dye a sock blanket and it inspires a whole mini skein set. Other times it might be the reverse, but I will be coming back to this technique more and more. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. And if you love the yarn I dye, go and check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. It's filled with hand-dyed yarn, and while I cannot guarantee that this particular colorway is available, I may still have some mini skein sets from the 26 SMSMS, and so you should go and check that out. And it is a great way to help support the channel and get yarn featured in one of my videos. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.